see the changes that have come over me. The last few days I've been afraid that I might drift away. So I've been telling old stories, singing old songs that made me think about where I came from. Maybe that's the reason why I seem so far away today.
I never thought I'd be doing this. When you're young, you don't think about the future. As a doctor of over 30 years, it's not easy being a patient. It's a bit of a wake-up call to think you might get sick yourself, especially when it's entirely preventable. But I'm happy I found the solution, because I knew where to look.
When it dawned on me that I might be slipping towards diabetes, I wanted to find out all I could. I wanted to stop the process because I know what's ahead. It's a terrible disease with horrible consequences. Sugar is very toxic to the body. It basically affects all organs, and especially blood vessels and nerves. We measure its progress by how much damage it does to the hemoglobin in our red blood cells. It all started when I was under a bit of stress at work. You know the story. I let my diet slip, started eating the wrong foods. I started to feel really bad and put on weight. Then I did the metabolic testing and I was shocked at the results. I couldn't believe how bad things had got. And just because I'm a doctor doesn't mean I'm not susceptible to doing the wrong thing, even though I should know better. Anyway, I started looking at what I could do to improve things. I looked at all sorts of studies, not just medical research, but animal research too. Archaeology played its part, looking at our ancestors and the historical diet of Indigenous people in Australia too.
I'd forgotten that I had gestational diabetes during my last pregnancy. Why would I remember? It's over 20 years ago now. And when my mother was diagnosed with diabetes, I didn't connect the dots. It was just by chance. I was working next door to a physiotherapy clinic where they did metabolic testing that I twigged about what was happening. So I set out on a quest to find out what I could do to fix myself and stop the deterioration. I've always been interested in nutrition, so I should know. But the current advice given to type 2 diabetics about diet just didn't seem enough. It didn't help me, so I was determined to find out more, to really get to the bottom of the problem.
First of all, let's look at things on a cellular level.
Our cells have a lot of important functions, like making protein, hormones, and enzymes, but one of the most important is making energy. In most cells of our body, we make energy in little organelles called mitochondria. They're small sausage-shaped structures, and this is where ATP is made, which we use for energy. Now we know mitochondrial function is vitally important in diabetes and other diseases. Mitochondria can use carbohydrate, fat, or protein for energy. Now, we don't want them using protein if we can help it, but we can look at carbohydrates and fats as good energy substrates. Let's compare both of these. Carbohydrate is our quick energy source. We can produce ATP pretty quickly from glucose, so that when you eat something sweet, it gives you an energy boost. We can absorb glucose straight into the bloodstream from the gut and put it to work right away. We also store glucose as glycogen in our muscles and in our liver. That way we have quick energy for exercise. So when Usain Bolt takes off from the starting block, he's pretty much running on glucose. That quick energy means that he can get to a fast speed really quick, and in his case, he's got to have it immediately within a few seconds. But there is a payback. The system is turbocharged, and using glucose for energy creates a lot of stress in our cells called oxidative stress and a buildup of lactic acid. We need to mop that up with antioxidants such as vitamin C and glutathione. Another problem is that carbohydrate is heavy and we can only store and carry around a small amount of it. Once we've used up all our glycogen and glucose, we need to stop and refuel. Marathon runners often experience this as the wall, and that's why we need to eat every 4 hours or so if we are very carb dependent. Now let's compare using fat for energy. Burning fat for energy is a bit slower in our mitochondria. It takes a bit longer to get going, but the upside is there is less oxidative stress produced. And a big plus is that we have an endless supply of it. All of us have fat stores, and even the skinniest person has at least 15% body fat. So once we tap into our fat stores, that gives us energy that can keep us going all day. Also, fat is more easily stored. For each kilo of fat, you get twice as much energy as carbohydrate. Now that might not seem to be too important, but if you're trekking through desert sand or hunting food over long distances, accessing energy is quite important. Migrating birds are a good example. Birds such as geese and sandpipers may need to fly for up to 5 days before they get to safe places to land when they are migrating. If they were to load up with carbohydrate for the journey, they'd be so heavy they wouldn't be able to take off. So they increase their fat stores and live off breaking down fat for energy. This gives them a continuous supply of energy, which allows them to fly for 5 days straight without stopping. We know a lot of mammals do the same thing, and the camel is a prize example. Camels may also go days without food, so they store fat in their hump, and their mitochondria access fat as a continuous supply of energy. We may not realise it, but we can operate in the same way as a camel. The Kalahari Bushmen trek animals for days and rely on their fat stores to keep them going, only using carbohydrate when they have to switch to high intensity exercise such as sprinting during the chase. In fact, theories about how we lived in the past suggest that part of our success as hunters was because we accessed fat for energy as we hunted wild animals. Our superior function at cooling our bodies during exercise allowed us to hunt animals for long periods without overheating. Animals such as deer, while being able to sprint fast over short distances to get away from predators, quickly overheat and collapse with prolonged exercise. Here in Australia, our Indigenous people used to go walkabout. These were long treks between hunting grounds or food sources, where they needed to access their fat stores to give them energy. And they were very good at it. Their diet consisted of healthy fat sources such as eggs, fish, and wild meat. Good sources of easily broken down fat and essential fatty acids. There was not much carb burning for energy, as this had to be cooked. It's no surprise that traditional cultures that were nomadic are suffering the worst epidemics of diabetes now. So how did all this information apply to me? Well, first, I had my metabolic testing done at the physio clinic next door. This consisted of measuring whether I was burning fat for energy or carbohydrate during rest and exercise. After testing, what you end up with is a graph of your energy use matched to your pulse rate. The idea is a low intensity exercise when your pulse is slow, you should be burning fat for energy. Then when you increase the intensity, like sprinting, you change over to burning carbohydrate. The fitter and more fat adapted your body is, the more you can burn fat up to a higher pulse rate, and the better energy production you get at lower intensity. So who gets this sort of testing done? Well, it could be people with weight problems or fatigue, but the majority are endurance athletes. Marathon runners and endurance cyclists can really benefit from finding out how good their fat burning is and then training to improve it. In sports science, this is known as becoming fat adapted. Training your body, and in particular your mitochondria, to burn more fat for energy and rely less on carbohydrate. Your endurance is much better because you keep burning fat for energy all day and it doesn't run out like carbohydrate. And the fitter you are, the more fat you can burn at higher intensities too. So most professional runners now train their bodies to become better fat adapted. No more loading up with pasta 3 days before a run. It's coconut oil and butter that are the fuel of choice. These fats contain shorter fat chains than other fats, which are easily broken down for energy, the so-called medium chain fatty acids. Now, what we see in someone who has a poor metabolism, they may be struggling to lose weight, they may have a great deal of fatigue, or they may have diabetes, is that there is very little fat burning throughout all of the pulse rates, whether it's low or high intensity exercise. And the patient is burning carbohydrate for energy through all of the exercise intensities. So at low pulse rates, when they're at rest, at low intensity exercise, and then also at high intensity exercise. So they're mainly using carbohydrate for energy. This is putting a lot of pressure on the pancreas and is not accessing the fat for energy that people who are very fit, like endurance athletes, can do. Now, we should be able to do something about this. So on to my testing. My first test wasn't great. There wasn't a great degree of fat burning, which was why I had trouble losing weight. But I also switched to carbohydrate at quite a low pulse rate or exercise intensity. I didn't take much notice of it at the time, and then I hit the work stress and about 6 months of bad eating habits.
So I knew that my mitochondrial function wasn't great to start with, but what happened next gave me a big fat shock. After a stressful few months and a bad bout of comfort eating, I went back to get retested. My results were truly shocking. My mitochondrial function had deteriorated to such an extent that I wasn't burning any fat whatsoever, just burning carbohydrate all the time. You can imagine I was pretty upset. At the same time, I was doing some blood tests and I found that my fasting insulin was gradually rising. Now, I wasn't diabetic, but I was heading in that direction. I was on the brink of pre-diabetes, and another few years of the same habits would see me falling into that category.
There's virtually no fat burning now, even at low intensity, and I'm burning carbohydrate almost continuously, even from a lower pulse rate. So this just shows the deterioration in about 6 months with a bad diet provoked by stress. And I reckon that if we were to test a lot of type 2 diabetics, we'd get a very similar picture to this. I needed to measure my body mass index to see how bad the situation was.
77.1 kilos.
Okay, so I'm 77 kilos, which is really bad news. And that probably puts me into the overweight or obese category. And now we're going to do my waist measurement. So for a female, it should be 88 centimetres. So I've got 10 centimetres to lose around my waist. So while I was putting the weight on, I put a lot of weight on here around my hips. And of course I've got this big belly. Lots of belly fat, which is very unhealthy. And so I've got a lot of work to do. Female, calculate. Okay, so my BMI is 31.2. So you're in the overweight category and your waist circumference is in a high risk range. Well, according to some other body mass index charts, I'm actually in the obese category. So having learnt all that, I now needed to work out how to become more fat adapted. The first thing I needed to do was eat more fat. So I reduced my carbohydrate intake and added more healthy fats such as olive oil, coconut oil and organic butter and ghee. But first I had to get some baseline data. To test out if my body was becoming more reliant on fat rather than carbohydrate, I decided to do the Gold Coast Half Marathon, but at a slow pace. I've never been much of a runner, so to attempt a half marathon at my age was a bit of a stretch. I wanted to do it without carb loading, to see if my body would burn fat for energy.
So here I am having the meal the night before the half marathon. Now there'll be a lot of people who've been carbing up for the last few days, trying to get their glycogen levels up to max. I've been concentrating on more getting my fat intake up, but tonight I am going to have some carbohydrate just to make sure my glycogen stores are full, because I am a bit concerned, because I think I'm going to have to run at a pace to be able to complete in the 3 hours. I'm going to have to run, jog, part of the race at a pace that means I'm going to be doing some carb burning as well as fat burning. I haven't had enough time to train fully, to get my body fully fat adapted for this event, but I'm going to try it anyway. So I'm just aiming to finish. That's all I want to do, is finish in the right time. So I'm having a little bit of lamb and salad. I'm having a wonderful homemade veggie soup, and I am going to have some champ, some mashed potato, which anybody from Ireland will know all about champ. It's what everybody was reared on back in the day, and mashed potato with spring onions in it. You make it into a nice volcano, and then you put butter on the top and let it melt all through. It's absolutely delicious, and I love it. Even though I shouldn't be eating any carbs at all, I'm going to carb up with this just to make sure if I am using any carbs tomorrow for energy, that my glycogen stores are full at this stage tonight anyway. So it's a bit nerve-wracking. You know, I've never done this before, so it's just going to be really interesting to see if I can actually do this or not. But anyway, here goes.
Very steep uphill. It's very steep uphill.
Wow.
Looking at it goes vertical. At least
Here we are, we're just at the start. It's only a couple of minutes to go. Everybody's getting really excited.
Oh, I have the full rages on 1,000 turns.
Here we go.
I'm a thousand. But I'm the light in the middle of every man's fall. I bend my arrows now in circles and I shoot around. I don't want you in the morning light. I sure will. 'Cause I'm a fire.
Yep, 21k finisher.
So water on the fountain, you could send myself on me, you could send myself on me.
Well, clearly that didn't work too well. So when I finished the half marathon, I had completely run out of glycogen. What was happening was I was doing a combination of walking and jogging, and so the jogging was too high intensity and burning up carbs instead of fat burning. Before the end, I was tired, hungry and out of gas, and I staggered over the line exhausted. By that time, I had changed my diet to include more fat, but that didn't seem to be enough. I wanted to keep training and see if my body would become more fat adapted with more training, like the high intensity interval training. So I went back to my exercise bike and to my old favourite, the Street Strider.
myself that it'll be fine. You can't make everybody happy all of the time. But I find myself in a place that I've never been, a place that I thought that I would never be. There's people looking back at me.
I'm not advocating that anyone else try to do what I was going to do, but it was more to prove a point that we can train our bodies to burn fat as well as carbohydrate. Now, I'm not saying we don't need carbohydrate. I think we do, especially for high intensity exercise, such as running for a bus or climbing upstairs. But what I believe we need to achieve is what I call metabolic flexibility. The ability to burn fat while doing everyday activities such as working in the office, housework, etc., and then switch easily to carbohydrate when we need it for high intensity activities. I set out to travel 60 kilometres on my straight strider without eating anything, just drinking water. Now, I know some endurance cyclists do this sort of training to improve fat burning. I would do low intensity, slow striding so that I stayed in fat burning mode the whole time. So no high intensity carb burning exercise for me, just slow and steady. Why 60 kilometres? Because it felt right, and I reckon 60% of type 2 diabetics could get rid of their diabetes if they only did what I did.
We went swimming in the old blue lake where her daddy's gonna learn to skate. We went swimming in the old blue lake, floating breathless on a cool namesake. We went searching in the old coal mine where those pale young men had died.
Even the swimming pool's open at 4:30 in the morning for all those here training.
Okay, so it's first light. It's a beautiful morning. And I've reached the beach, which is great. There's not too many people around between 4 and 5 in the morning. There's people going to work, cyclists. But you do meet the odd party goer or people coming home from the club, so I'm glad to get away from that scenario. And I'm just going to be heading on down the coast and hopefully seeing the sun come up.
We went walking on the old train tracks in the forest from the books I had, and wondered as my father's son she named the flowers that were watching them. She took me up in those mining hills where almost forgotten hermit lives. Without a lover and without wealth too, he gave it all for his solitude. And when the darkest nights of August came, we would be so very far away. She had been so very reckless and so brave. I see now what she gave away. I see now what she gave away. I see now what she gave away. By the light of the midnight sun, I held on to my love. Though she dipped, she never fell. I held my hands and fell. I held my hands and fell.
Everyone goes surfing on Saturday morning.
On a wheel, and the deer is in the audience by the border of darkness, where forgiveness grows and slowly walls away. There's a question somewhere asked for the answer inside, but I'll never find the kid before she's gone. The day is never done, so I ain't only asleep, so I hope somewhere.
Everyone's at the beach doing something.
But now the ghost is in my jacket and my stairs will build an angle, blinded forcefully, but enter where I stand. There are no locks or soul nails, I will my can is not to kill you. Simply lost the words to tell you I'm afraid. There's that sign up to the hill, see the far of the land.
Here we are at Coolangatta and Snapper Rocks, home of some great surfing competitions. This is as far south as I go. I'm going to turn right now and head north to the Spit.
So I'm about halfway there. So far I've just drunk water, haven't had anything to eat yet. I'm feeling fine, my legs are strong. I'm just keeping going slowly, not letting my pulse get above 120. I'm trying to keep it lower than that, and so I'm still in fat burning. So I'm going to keep going. I think I'm going to make it. One time to put on suntan cream. It's going to night till 7:30. Then we get hot. In beautiful Broad Beach. I reckon I've got about 12 kilometres to go. Unfortunately, the toes of my right foot are starting to hurt, and I've got a pain in the back of my neck. And this is often what happens, you know, my energy is good, I'm feeling pretty good, I'm not feeling hungry, I'm drinking plenty of water and taking plenty of magnesium. But it's often in these endurance kind of events, it's the injuries that make you pull out, not the actual lack of energy. So I'm just going to rub some magnesium oil into my neck and my toes and hope I can get going again and complete this challenge, because I'm so close to it. It's just literally over there.
Past the Q1 and into Surfer's Paradise. And here's its beautiful, iconic beach. Lots of people there already. And the Gold Coast is hosting the next Commonwealth Games. So if you want to come along and visit the Games, it's a great place for a holiday. And here I am at the finish line, 60 kilometres on.
So here I am at the Spit. I've been striding for about 9 hours. I started at 4 this morning, it's now 1 o'clock in the afternoon. So I've been striding for 9 hours without anything to eat. I've just been using my fat stores for energy. Fine, a few aches and pains here and there, but really nothing too major. And I haven't eaten since 9 o'clock last night, so I haven't eaten for 16 hours, and I'm absolutely fine. I drank lots of water, took lots of magnesium, and did low intensity, slow exercise so that I was in fat burning mode. Look, I did it. I travelled the 60 kilometres without stopping and without food. I was clearly burning fat for energy the whole way because I was able to keep going, and I didn't feel hungry at all. What's the end result? My blood glucose and fasting insulin have normalised, my weight is dropping, my metabolic testing has improved, I've pulled myself back from the brink, and now I want to help everyone else do the same. Not stride for 60 kilometres, but just get well again. Improve their diabetes, take back control of their health. It's quite easy.
I'm in something good. Something tells me I'm in something good.